सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So continuing on with the mantra number 5, which I think we should be able to conclude today. So let's chant it and then continue on with the rest of the commentary. Number 5. Yatra supto na kanchana kamam kamayate न कंचन स्वप्नं पश्यति तत् सुषुप्तं सुषुप्तस्थान एकीभूतः प्रज्ञानघनः एव आनन्दमयो हि आनन्दभुक् चेतो मुखः प्राज्ञः तृतीयपादः। प्राज्ञः तृतीयपादः. So this is an introduction to the prajñah, which is the Purusha in the Sushupti Avastha, right? So we saw Vishwa, which was the Purusha in the Jagrat Avastha, and Tejasa, which is the Purusha in the Swapna Avastha, and Prajñah, which is the Purusha in the Sushupti Avastha. And so again, this is not, as we saw, the very definition of the word Upanishad, of Vedanta, and yeah, you can say Upanishad. It is not somebody else's description, it is our own description. And this is part of understanding of exactly who we are and what are my constituents, how do I behave, and more importantly, where am I going? What is my goal? What is the end result of my being what I am? So the prajna is also part of that understanding. So there we saw that the word prajna, as it is often done in the understanding of the Brahma Vidya, these words sometimes have multiple meanings and sometimes even an opposite meaning, but all relevant. In other words, it's not as though they are fighting with each other. They're ways of understanding the eventual goal from a different perspective. So the reason I'm saying is that the word prajna can be also known as prakarshena ajñah. As we saw in the last class, prakarshena ajñah means total ignorance. And so that is one way to look at it. And it is also one way to confirm our own experience in deep sleep, which is, I don't know anything. Nothing. Total ignorance. Not even a trace of any knowledge. At least in the sleepy state, we are kind of ignorant, but we have some knowledge that I'm sitting here and so on. But in the deep sleep, There's not even a trace of knowledge. Everything is just completely, I don't know. It's one long, I don't know. And so that can be seen as a definition of pragya. Prakarshena agya. Agya means one that doesn't know. And prakarshena means totally doesn't know. So this is one thing to do. Then we go into now another way of defining pragya. And eventually, this is a more revealing, more accurate description of what pragya is. So here we follow the commentary of Adi Shankara. So yeah, this is why the, uh, the wise people who know the importance of the various Upanishads and so on are able to reveal their thinking, their analyzing their ideas in terms that you and I can relate to. So this is the beauty of commentators, especially somebody like Adi Shankara, who is considered to be one of the most insightful, articulate commentators on Advaita Vedanta. And so we have to follow that. And so therefore, the commentary of Adi Shankara is very important. Furthermore, there's even more explanation given by other people who explain the thinking of Adi Shankara even in more detail. Now, this is what our acharyas do, and we're very fortunate to be able to have access to it. And so we have a much better understanding of relating to the facts if someone is able to explain to us exactly how this is. So let's follow that. So now, in the I think on page 198, you'll have to look that up in the two books. There is a Shankara Bhashya which says the following: Bhuta Bhavishyat. But there's something missing here. Maybe I did not record. Let me just make sure that 198. If I can't find it here, then I will go to the book on the Shankara Bhashya. Yeah. It is one on 198, yeah. So it says, Bhuta Bhavishyat Jnatratvam Sarva Vishaya Jnatratvam Asya Eva Iti Pragya. So one definition of Pragya is it knows the past, and it also has an understanding of what is going to happen to us. As like, for example, during our Jagrat Avastha and Swapna Avastha, we certainly have a memory of, we have a pretty good idea of who we are, how old I am, who my parents are, what my family is, all of that I know. And not only that, based on where we are, we can make a reasonable estimate about the future. We don't know all the details, but given our history of, for example, if somebody is in his 80s like I am, then I can estimate, I have a few more years to live. So that says some knowledge of the future. And I know what my diseases of the body is, how I'm going to do all that. I know my relationships, how that's going. And so some idea about the future I also have. So Prajna is one that has the knowledge of the past and knowledge of the future even while I'm sleeping. So one can say, what do you mean even if you're sleeping? You don't have that knowledge. So here Adi Shankara points out, it's very important, and Swami Maheswaran, Swami Akhandananda points it out even more clearly, that it doesn't mean that those knowledge points are explicit at night, but they are there. Isn't it? Because when you get up in the morning, the entire thing comes back to you. So it is there in some kind of a seed form, even though it is not displayed during the night. An important point. So Swami Akhandananda gives a very interesting example. He says, suppose there used to be a king, and the king was the he had a very large kingdom, and he ruled over the kingdom for a long time. And then he got deposed, like it happened to the kings in the 1947 independence of India. Because India, as you know, before 1947, when we were under the subjugation of the British, they allowed some individual kings to remain kings of their own territories. So these are all Maharajas. And then when the country was released, the founders pointed out that this is not going to be happening. How can we have, India is not a bunch of kingdoms. It has to be all part of one. And so they were deposed. Okay. So now, even if there is a king of, let's say, Gwalior, king of Gwalior, he's no longer the king of Gwalior, but people still call him king, Raja. Here comes Rajaji, Namaste. Why do you call him Rajaji? Because he used to be a Raja, legitimately. So similarly, here Prajna is called because he used to be knowledgeable yesterday, and he will be again tomorrow. But at this moment, he is not displaying his power as a Raja. So it is proper to call him. So this is what he's saying. Bhuta bhavishyat jnatratvam sarva vishaya jnatratvasya eva iti samgya. It is pragya. Iti pragya. I didn't write it down as clearly as I should. It is called pragya. So this is one argument. Somebody says, this is not a very convincing argument. He used to be and he will be, but right now he's not, and so on. So then, Adi Shankara on page 200, I'm talking about this equivalent pages of Swami Dayananji's book. I don't have. You can refer to it if you can make a note of this. In the page 200, Adi Shankara himself says, but I have a better way of describing. This is also okay. He says it's admissible, but not as effective as the other one, which is really what we are going to follow. And that is given in page 200. He says, Athava. Athava means, as in English, or. On the other hand, or. Pragyapti matrasya eva asadharanam rupamiti pragya. Athava pragyapti matram asya eva asadharana karanam rupamiti pragya. Okay, so let's understand this is a beautiful explanation, very precise, but it has to be opened up, unfolded. So first of all, understand what is asadharanam. So asadharana means something which is unique to that person. You know, like for example, I'm living in the US, and that is a common karanam. I'm an American. That's common. But if I am my name with in the that is asadharana karana, something unique to me. It also has I also have sadharana karanam. I'm in California, etc., etc. Those are all sadharana karanam. But what is unique is asadharana karanam. So this is the definition of asadharana karanam. So he says pragya has a asadharana karanam. What is that? Pragyapti matram eva asya. So this is important to see. What does it really mean? Pragyapti matram. Pragyapti matram here means, listen, he says, when you are in deep sleep, it is very true that you are a conscious being. So that one, I hope we don't have to get caught up in that. Am I conscious or not? And in fact, there are lots of beautiful uh, arguments why I am conscious while I'm asleep. The typical given is Sukham as I had a wonderful sleep. You cannot have a anusandhanam, you cannot have a memory that I had a wonderful sleep unless you had the experience of wonderful sleep. Okay? A side argument to that, which I like even more than this one, this is the traditional way of doing it, is, do you know that you have a waking experience? Yes. Do you know that you have a dream experience? Yes. Do you know if you have any other experience other than the waking and the dream? Yes. That means it is known to you. Your deep sleep is known to you. You are, this is what is called pragyapti matram. Pragyapti matram means you are a conscious being even while you are asleep. Now the question is, what kind of a So this, by the way, it's interesting. This is, you can be called a sadharana karanam. Sadharana karanam means you're conscious, you're conscious, you're conscious. Right? What is the asadharana karanam? So let's think about that. This is a very good viveka. And this particular line of viveka we are going to see in more detail towards the rest of the Karika. This is an important viveka that we must have the ability to do. What is the asadharana karana? You follow what I'm saying? In the case of deep sleep, there is a sadhana karanam along with everything else. It's like I'm in America. And that means that I am nowhere, I'm a knower, I'm knower, I'm knower. How do you know you're a knower? We just went through that. Because you know that I am a waker. I know that I'm a dreamer. I also know there is another state I'm in, which is deep sleep. So that much I know. That is the sadharana karanam. Do you know what the asadharana karanam is? This is really worth thinking about. The asadharana karanam is, which means, asadharana means the unique quality. Yeah. Is asadharanam quality. Asadharanam karanam means the unique aspect. You can't even say a quality. You can say, this is why it's asadharana rupam. Rupam, it means its own isness, its ownness. It is not borrowed as a quality. Excuse me. So that unique nature, you can say a unique nature. You know what that is? This is what Swami Akhandananda pointed out, and it's so beautiful. And this is only a small sample. This is going to be expanded and commented upon repeatedly. The unique aspect is you are a knower without two things that are in the other two states. That's the uniqueness of Sushupti, Pragya. What is it? One is you don't have any Vishaya. You're not bound by any things. Vishaya here means things that bind us. So not just thoughts, but thoughts that contribute toward my self-awareness as a limited person. That is called Vishaya. Like, for example, anything that you see, like a table. Yeah, just look at that. It doesn't have to be any special thing, just a table. So if you look at this table in front of me, you know what it does? We don't realize how limiting my understanding of this table is. We look at it as a table. What are we making a big deal about it? You know what the big deal is? The big deal is that the table makes me into a limited person. Means I am at this point looking at the table only. I'm not looking at I'm not imagining the whole universe as I should be. But this is limiting me to be here now. So this is what is called a Vishaya. In the Jagrat Avastha and the Swapna Avastha, there are Vishayas. Vishinoti, they bind me. They specify exactly where I am at any one time. That doesn't happen in the deep sleep. There is no Vishaya. Number one. Number two, I am not an Abhimani. There is no Vishaya and I am not an Abhimani. What does that mean? Abhimani means that I am relating to the Vishaya. I have a certain way of looking at myself when I see a table and all the rest of the things in this room. I limit myself to this is who I am. So the Vishaya and Abhimana, identification is the English word. I identify with the Vishaya, are the two sides of the same coin, so to speak. In Sushupti Avastha, none of them really bind me. This is the unique aspect of Sushupti, of Pragya. This is what Pragya is. So with that understanding, let us read the Shankara Bhashya again. Athava means or, pragyapti matram asya. Pragyapti matram. So pragyapti matram means pure awareness, jnanam. Jnanam. So, otherwise, I have jnanam of this, and I have the abhimana of this. I have the jnanam of that, and I am the abhimana of that. These are all the expressions of a jiva. And you could say this is very important to see. Really speaking, prajna is free of jivatva. This is our experience too. It's not something I'm telling you that you say, why are you saying I'm always a jiva? Not in deep sleep. In deep sleep, you have nothing that binds you. There's no vishaya, and you have no identification with anything, with the binding things. You are pure jnanam. Knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. And so, pragyapti matram eva asya asadharanam rupam iti pragya. Beautiful definition. Very airtight, very clean, very precise. So this is asadharana karana. So one can even say that you are, you say, I'm a jiva, I'm a jiva, I'm a jiva. No. You're a jiva in two of the three states of consciousness. But even there is a slight jivatvam, which is not there in the Turiya, which we will go to next, which is mantra number 7. But for all intents and purposes, in the Sushupti, you have the ability to give up your jivatvam. Not the ability, you have the nature of becoming. So there we can say, well, what's the difference? If I'm already not jiva. The jiva, as the difference is, we saw earlier, you don't know it. You don't know you're not a jiva. You have the experience of not being an individual, but you don't know you are not an individual. That is the lack of viveka. That only comes from a clear enunciation of who you are as we proceed further. But at this point in time, this is very important to see that the pragyapti matram eva asadharana rupam pragya. Okay? All right. And now Swami Akhandananda very beautifully takes up. He says, this is really what Ishvara is. So, it is very, very revealing, really. When I began to understand this, it became so much more clear in my mind. Ekajiva Vada. So an Ekajiva Vada means that there are no two individuals. You're not even, you and Ishvara being a different is not also not tenable, not true. It's all the same individual. It's just that you have some imagination that you are different. False imagination. Anyway, that we will tackle later. But Ishvara is also pragyapti matram. There is no vishaya and there is no abhimana. So the two are pretty much the same. So then we can say, if the two are the same, how come I feel so limited? What's the reason for it? I think I was telling you this is a, there are certain things in your memory that kind of stand out. I think I was telling you this, that I still remember we had a satsang in Swami Dayanandji's. He had a little house, and my wife and I were very fortunate in Piercy to be given a small separate place. All the other students that didn't have families, they lived in kind of like uh, rooms in the old motel. But there was 2 or 3 buildings that were unique, and when the bigger building was given to Swami Dayanandji, and since I had 2 children and a wife, they said, okay, we'll give you something different from the other rooms. So there was a kind of like a cottage, which has now been transformed into a museum for Swami Chinmayanandji, from what I understand. I haven't gone there. But anyway, we used to live in the cottage. And so we were very fortunate that after the classes, we would, really, there were 2 reasons why we would go to Swamiji's kutia. One is for satsang. The other one was the unique food that people would make for him. So we would also not be completely full with food in the cafeteria. We'll leave some space in our tummies, and we will also taste some of the unique food. I remember we learned a lot about South Indian food from there. At least my wife did. So in one of those satsangs, I still remember, there was a student who asked Swamiji, Swamiji, you say that I am unlimited. And how come I feel limited? I don't understand that. And I still remember Swamiji's answer. He said, don't steal my questions from me. I was just going to ask you exactly the same thing. If you are unlimited, then how do you feel and why do you feel unlimited? So we all laughed at that and so on. So here that question is taken up and saying, why is it that Ishvara also has the same pragyapti rupam, asadharana karanam, and I also have pragyapti rupam, asadhara karanam, then how come we are different? So then the answer is that try to see the way Ishvara looks at things. It is just that we are, because of our circumstance, we are now naturally attuned to the fact that I am just an individual. And I just take it for granted. And I don't question it. I don't even question it. Does anybody go around saying, why am I a limited individual? I should not be limited. Nobody does that. That question doesn't even arise. Until the Vedantic masters say, by the way, have you ever asked yourself why you are what you are? And you say, no. Say, you should. There will be some amazing things if you could do that. So this is what the Brahma Sutra's first sutra is, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Mean Gyatum Ichcha. Look into that. When that is mentioned, as it is to us by some Acharya and so on, you begin to say, really? Is that possible that I am not a limited person? I'm not a jiva? How come I don't understand it? then the dialogue can take place. At least the idea must be given to me. Then the discussion comes up to say, listen, you can be like Ishvara is. In fact, you will be Ishvara if you view things the way Ishvara does. You have chosen to be a limited person. I can understand that. There are a lot of other people who do the same way. Everybody does the same way, but not necessarily. So there we have to say, start educating yourself. So for instance, just to start at one point, you can please look at your watch and tell me, what time is it? Well, it's 8:35 p.m. in California. Okay, 8:35. What is the time in the East Coast? It's 12:35 in the morning. What is the time in India? It's 9 o'clock in the morning. So the time is specific to you, where you are situated at this point. What is the time in Ishvara's watch? Tell me. You think that the New York time is outside? Is that wrong? No. You think that the Indian time is wrong in Ishvara's view? No, it's exactly what it should be. The only thing is, Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, I really admire the Americans. When he first came here, he used to say, these guys are very special people. They even change the time. Daylight saving time, and that to the other. They feel we can change the time. You cannot change the time. You can pretend whatever it is, it's up to you. There is no specific time. And Pragyaha, which is the beginning point of Ishvara. This is the way to look at it, really. I tell you, this is one thing I learned in the study of this Karika and Swami Khandananda's commentary and so on. Eka Jivavada. So Eka Jivavada means really, as I've told that before also, that you don't keep the dichotomy of enquiry and relationships separate for a long time, only to say at one time in the end we will all collapse together and have an identity between Jiva and Ishvara. That's not as effective. It can be done. It's not as though it's impossible, but it's not nearly as... You see, this is the thing. When I was studying all my life, I kept that separation. I still do. It's not as though I'm done. But I kept that separation front and center. That was the main thing. And let us study all the Upanishads, what are they saying, Panchakosha Viveka and Taitriyas, and then Avasthatraya Viveka in Mandukya. You keep everything all separate and so on. You say, understand it, yes, 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 yes. But something, still nothing is happening. And then towards the end of the life, you study all this, and somehow with meditation and so on, something begins to dawn in your life. So Vivekananda says that from learning from all the Mahatmas that he has met, they all say, don't wait. Start the quest for identity in the very beginning. It's understandable that it's very difficult in the beginning because you're not used to it. But go for it. And so the Eka Jiva Vada in this context means that the Pragya and Ishvara's identity should be appreciated right away. Don't wait for it later. Waiting for it later means what? When I remember the last time I studied, in fact, this is the third time I'm studying the Mandukya Karika. But the first two times, my understanding was, okay, this is Jagrata Avastha, this is Swapna Avastha, this is all keep it separate. Yes, yes, I know those are the three and so on and so forth. Let's go to the next one. This is Turiya. There is a certain Turiya which is common to all of them. Yes, yes, I understood that and so on. But it didn't really dawn on me that the identity is at every step. And we will go through the remuneration of the steps. In fact, hopefully I'll finish, I will try to wrap up mantra number 5 today and then go to mantra number 6. And in number 6, Swami Vivekananda has, even though the Shankara Bhashya on number 6 is very short, but Swami Vivekananda has spent a lot of time explaining the significance of Pragya as Ishvara in that one, in the next one. So I will do that again in the next one, but I want to finish doing this today. But we have taken the first step already. And the first step is that if you really want to become free, then think free now. Don't wait. And how do I think free? What does that mean? It means, don't you see, that really just being time-bound is limiting yourself from the standpoint of Vishaya and Abhimana. This is the time that I have. This is where I am. So it's okay to behave in a certain way. You cannot say, somebody asks you what time it is and he says, I have no time. Let's say, listen, I'm catching a train. Can you please tell me what time it is? To me, time does not mean anything. No, don't act so stupidly. So just behave in a normal way. And then that's snobbery, really. That's a non-understanding. Swami Dhananand used to say that this was a real fact. Swamiji actually showed us a letter one time from one of his students who wrote to him. In those days, there was no email or anything people write. And so he showed us a letter from a student who was very impressed by the Vedantic teaching of Swamiji. And then he wrote to him saying, this body will come to see you in 1 month. This body and this mind is very anxious. And this body, she was very careful to say, I am not coming. I'm already there, but the body is going to come. Swamiji says Snobbery. Snobbery. You're just pretending you know, but you don't really know. So there's no go around saying I don't have any time or anything. But deep down below, do the vichara. That if you really want to be free, then think how Ishvara looks at things. Even more important than the time or the place. So, for example, place would be I'm in the West Coast, and New York is on the East Coast. And if you go around a little bit, then New York becomes the West Coast. And England becomes the East Coast, if you are in the Atlantic journey. All changeable, all specific to a situation. There's no reality to it. And in the Pragyapti Matram, there's no such thing as relativity. You don't have Vishaya, you don't have Abhimana. So remember those two aspects that make you into a limited person. So if you want to see the identity of Pragyaha and Ishvara, then think like Ishvara. Enquire into it, accept. So there is no reality to upadhi. Think of it as an upadhi. So the rooms, there's no reality to space being different. The room space is an upadhi. Really even more important in this. This is what Swami Makhandananda is going to drill into us. There is important sadhana is the thinking of me and mine. Me and mine. This is who I am. Don't mess with me. This is my house. This is my family. They are doing very well. My grandchildren, my children, so proud of them. These are mine. What about the other children? They are not mine. I don't have anything to do with them. Is this the way Ishvara will think? There was this Swami Chinmayananda had made this very beautiful comment. He said, they were two neighbors, and both of them they were landowners in a village next to each other. And one of the landowners, his daughter was scheduled to be married over the weekend. And his other neighbor was planting some rice shoots in the ground in his field. And so this father of the bride to be started praying to Ishvara. Ishvara, I've invited 500 people out in the open. I don't have a house big enough. They're all going to be out. Please make sure there is no rain, because I've been planning this for a long time. Make sure there's no rain. Next door to him, there's his neighbor. And rice is actually planted, what little I know, from what my memory was, in really wet ground. More water the better. So he prays, oh Lord, This is a very important sowing season for me. Make sure that you give me plenty of rain. Now, if you're Ishvara, what are you going to do? They're all their two next door neighbors who are asking for opposite things. So he will do what is natural. He's not going to be favorite of one versus the other. He's going to say, let whatever their past karmas be, let them take over, whatever it is. And they will be all blessed one way or the other. They are just worried now for the time being. But anyway, going back to this, this is a major thing about the Pragya and Ishvara not thinking alike. So the Pragya, so this is the thing. Pragya is a sampling of Ishvara. It's a copy of Ishvara. An accurate copy of Ishvara. Because it says when you are asleep, there's no me and mine. There's no abhimana, there is no vishaya. There is no time, no place, nothing. And yet you are happy. This is a hint of what Ishvara is. Anyway, to complete this topic, and then there's a lot of, I may not have enough time to do this. There's a lot of detail about, we're really all very similar, much more similar in the whole world than we think. We share the same space. No difference between a rich man's space and a small man's space, poor man's space. There's no difference. Okay, so you can say, okay, a rich man has. It's interesting. One of the people that my wife knows, he gifted his kids a lot of money because he himself is so rich. So the other day we found out that one of his kids is building a house, believe it or not, with 11 bathrooms. Can you believe that? How on earth can anybody have? We don't even know how many bedrooms they are going to do, but the bathroom is more important. I have no idea why. So there is some difference, but you can say there's a difference between the rich man's space and the poor man's space. The poor man, maybe they're struggling with having one bedroom apartment with 4 people living in there. So it's interesting when we were in Piercy, in that same cottage. So in the very small cottage, it was only one bathroom. And it had 2 stories. So down stories was a kitchen and a small room, which we never used because we used to go to the cafeteria. And upstairs, there was a very small room, and all 4 of us used to stay there. At that time, my older one was 10, younger one was 4, my wife and I. And we lived there for 2.5 years, well, closer to 2. And it was very cramped, but very comfortable. We really enjoyed our stay. So really speaking, the space is the same. So you can say, okay, the spaces are different. You know what? What about the air? Akasha may be slightly different. Sizes may be different. What about the prana? Same oxygen, no difference. Our bodies are made with the same ingredients. All the Pancha Mahabhutas are the same. And somebody is white and somebody is black and somebody is, so their skin differences are there, all beauty, the beauty of the creation. But fundamentally there is no difference between us. So as we were saying in the other class, that diversity is just a notion. Unity is the truth. So yes, start to think about unity early on, as early as possible. Merge the Pragya and Ishvara as quickly as you can. Through your thinking, through your inquiry. The more we stay away from mine and me, from focusing on differences rather than similarities, the better off you will be. Because that is your experience in Sushupti. There's some, in the next few minutes, just a couple of other things that, there's some technical analysis of that. So one question is, so all these questions are also important. They're raised by themselves and answered by themselves. The question is that supposing I have samashti abhimana, not vyashti abhimana. Vyashti abhimana would be pragya, samashti abhimana is Ishvara. Then how will there be sushupti? Right? Because the sushupti is only there in the vyashti abhimana, in the microcosmic identification. Right? So one person sleeps, but not everybody sleeps. And so does Ishvara also sleep? And the sleep resides where? What is the place for the sleep? It is in Ajnanam. It is not in knowledge. And Ishvara does not have Ajnanam. So there is no Sushupti for Ishvara and no Ajnanam for Ishvara. So if I have Samashti Gyan, Samashti Abhimana, if I have macrocosmic identification, what happens to my sleep? Interesting question. And in fact, Swami Khandananda answers this by saying that leave aside Ishvara, take the case of a Jnani. Jnani means one who has understood the whole thing. I remember when I was studying at PRC, this question appeared to me in my mind also. And I used to ask a lot of the students. Somehow I never got the right answer from anyone at that point. I don't know, I didn't pose it to Swami Dayanandji or whatever. But I remember the question in my mind, that if I'm a jnani, to the definition of a jnani, I was not a jnani when I was asking the question. I'm still not completely a jnani. But the question remains that if I'm a jnani, and I don't have any ajnanam, jnani, the definition of a jnani is that you don't have any ignorance, then where is the sleep going to be? Because the sleep has to be in an ignorance. Vivekhandananda points out, he answers this by saying It is in his samadhi, because equivalent to deep sleep is yogic samadhi. In the yogic samadhi, you can imitate deep sleep where you don't have any thoughts, you don't have any vishaya, you don't have any abhimana, and so you are in you are in samadhi. And so for a jnani, the sleep would be like samadhi. Okay, and certainly not in the case of Ishvara at all. So this it means now, so there's not a big problem. This just happens that for a jnani, there's no real deep sleep. And for an Ishvara, of course, there is no sleep at all. It is pure pragyapti matraha alone. And so if I become a jivan mukta, then even sleep is not something. If it happens, it happens. Doesn't matter. I'm different from it. So then, one other final point that Adi Shankara points out, this is in the Shankara Bhashya, given in page number 203 here. Itarayoho vishistamapi vijnanamasti soyam pragyaha soyam pragyaha tritiya pada. So he says that in the other states there is Vishishta Jnana. So he revises it really, almost the same point, but throws some light into a better understanding. This is the asadharana karanam of Sushupti, that in the other one there is Vishishta Jnana. Vishishta Jnana means a very particular knowledge. This is a table, is a Vishishta Jnana. This is a book, is another Vishishta Jnana. And there is Paroksha and Aparoksha Jnana. Like some things that I don't have in front of me, but I have some knowledge. Like, for example, that there is Washington, D.C. There's the government, there's a Senate. I don't see it, but I know it. It's called Paroksha Jnana. This is a book, this is a table, is Aparoksha Jnana. So this is the Vishishta Jnana. Now in the case of Ishvara, can there be any Paroksha Jnana? Just think about that. No. Why not? Because Parokshata means absence of direct experience. And Aparoksha means direct experience. So direct experience and indirect experience or lack thereof is Parokshata, Aparokshata. In the case of Ishvara, can there be Paroksha Jnana? Is that possible? Is there something where Ishvara says, oh, I didn't know about that? The whole thing belongs to Ishvara. So an individual can have Vishishta Jnanam, can have Parokshata and Aparokshata, but not Ishvara. and also not pragya. In pragya, everything, there is no paroksha jnana, obviously. There is no vishishta jnanam anyway. See, the possibility of parokshata can only come if there is a vishishta jnanam. But if there is no vishishta jnanam, not any particular knowledge, then everything is a paroksha. A beautiful thing, honestly. And then in the end, so very beautifully, just a small thing. An idea is this Gyapti Swarupam. Jnanam, you can just call it Jnanam. As you know, I'm starting to use the word Jnanam instead of consciousness. You know why? Because consciousness evokes a sense of quality, whereas Jnanam means Vastu. You and I are Vastus. We don't have any qualities. We have qualities of some being this or being that, but just like you have this ornament or that ornament, but it is all gold. Jnanam, jnanam. So then the question is jnanam born? Can jnanam be born? Can it have an adi? Can it have a beginning? Let's examine that. What are the possibilities of jnanam? If jnanam is born, that means it must be born from ajnanam, from not being there. Jnanam means forever presence. I am. That is jnana. By the knowledge I know I am, jnana. But can this knowledge come from nothingness? That's not possible. Okay, so then perhaps from one jnanam another jnanam comes. From one gyapti swarupam another gyapti swarupam comes. From one Satchidananda. And what's the difference between the first and the last? There's no difference. Jnanam is independence, complete freedom. And it's anadi, never started. And something that has never started cannot go away. It's not something that is made up of. If you are starting something, you can say, what is it made out of the start? Anyway, we'll go into this in more detail later on in the Karika. So there is no...
Showing pictures that match.
You know what happens. So, constant, always.
Here's the definition of happen, take place, occur.
I don't know where this... I guess this Google Assistant is always awake. There's some word that it catches and then it starts to answer it. Anyway, so, but you can see now where the confluence, the identity between Jiva and Ishvara is being highlighted. And this will be a major topic of discussion in the 6th mantra. which we will start next week. And so by this, I finished the mantra number 5. And this will continue on. Mantra number 6 is also about pragya alone. Very beautiful, but different aspects of pragya. And so we will look into that from next class. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Very nice to see you. Lovely. Okay. All the best. We will hopefully see you next week. Hari Om.